All right, welcome to the Reese Report. I'm the Mouth of North, Andrew Reese, and tonight I have a guest I've had on before, but a guest for a different reason this time, as we are doing an NFL playoff preview with Beyond the Locker Room. Yes, for those out there who are going to see this and watch this, or people that know me or know me on Twitter, Beyond watches a lot of sports. He doesn't just watch basketball; he's multifaceted, and so I'm going to bring that to you today and give you some football knowledge from him and, of course, from me. But I want to hear what he has to say about these wild card playoff games and then get a Super Bowl pick from him. And, we'll see what we think. I made some picks prior, but I will remind you who I like. But this is mostly going to be the Beyond show because I want to hear what he has to say, especially about his Steelers. And we will go into detail about the Steelers because there is trouble in Steelerland right now before the playoff game, and so we will talk about that. Beyond, how are you? And are you ready to talk some football?
Yeah, man, I really am, man. Refreshing to discuss some hoops. I mean, sorry, some football. I'm so used to talking
Yes.
hoops with you. Um, that we're talking about the pigskin, the gridiron. Yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing it. It's a nice palate cleanser from what we have to be usually discussing. So I'll leave
Yes,
it there.
yes. We need a break from the Raptors, people. I will be covering the Raptors more after football, but right now, like I've had enough of talking about the Raptors. They're a very painful team to watch this year. And for people who think I've been bad on Twitter, you haven't seen me do a show on this team yet. And so when I do, it'll be a lot worse. And so that will be fun when that happens. But I'm going to focus more on the draft when that happens because it's January and it's time to talk about players in the draft because our team stinks and we're going to be in the bottom five and we're going to get a really nice player. And so probably going to focus more on that than our awful team, our awful coach, and our awful GM and some of our awful fans. But let's not talk about that right now. Let's have a good time talking about football right now. All right, Beyond, let's get to game one. Saturday, 4:30, the LA Chargers, led by Jim Harbaugh, who once again went to a team fresh and led them to the playoffs. I was not expecting that in this first season, but he has turned them into a run first, defense first team and has turned Justin Herbert into a guy who doesn't turn the football over and is playing with a lot of confidence. They go to Houston to take on the Texans, a team that's not playing with much confidence and has a lot of injuries. CJ Stroud has been suffering from the sophomore jinx, and he has a couple of major injuries in Tank Dell, who had just a horrible injury, and Stephon Diggs, who tore his ACL. So this is a game that looks favorable to the Chargers. But what do you think is going to happen? This is in Houston. Um, but what do you think of these two teams, and what do you think is going to happen?
Um, I think I think both sides are happy they have each other as the opponent.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
right. That's right.
if you look at it's like, oh, you're my dance partner. Oh yay. The Chargers playoff history is like, if you're anybody that watches any bit of football, is like, man, you want to talk about a checkered and cruel history when it comes to playoff failures. The Chargers are right up there, a few other doozies, the Browns and others. And I
Yeah,
think the Chargers, yeah, I think right now they finally play a team in this case that doesn't have a lot of history behind them. They have their own flaws in this case. In this case, when it comes to their own playoff, ineptitude.
yeah,
But I think from their perspective, they think they see an opportunity to get a win on the road with a team that has been kind of like, for the most part, playing middling football pretty much for the second half of the season.
yeah,
Um, and then on the Houston side, the same thing goes there, where it's like they too have struggled, and trying to find identity for themselves all year. You mentioned Stroud. I'm not as harsh on him on his second season as others because, to your point, there's been a lot of injuries on the receiving core all year long. I don't think those three guys, the two you mentioned and Collins, I don't think they played more than probably about two games with each other all year. It seems like every time one
yeah.
comes back, another one gets hurt. So I don't know what it looks like, and I'm not sure, but I still think he's talented enough in this case here to make this very interesting. To me, this game comes down to, it's not about her, it's not about Harbaugh, or it's not about the Chargers' history, or it's not about Houston's history, or even CJ Stroud. This is about Herbert, and we're gonna find
Yeah,
out once and for all. Like, for folks that want to put him as a top 5 quarterback before he's done anything, won anything, like he's a guy who's been getting a lot of benefit of the doubt from a lot of people for a lot of years. I mean,
yeah,
be it the playoff game where they blew a 27-0 lead or whatever it was to Jacksonville, which was almost incredible watching it play out in real time. Or even some of the big games he's supposed to have late in the season where he's a no-show half the time, when they need a win late in the season, or even marquee matchups. I'm not sold on what I'm seeing. I think you had the key point. Like I think they protect him quite a bit this year, but I don't think this game's gonna be able to kind of just run the ball and just throw a few dink passes to get first downs. I think he's got to air it out a bit, and I think that smells to me like potential turnovers. So I think I like the home team in this game. Even though they're struggling, I think CJ Stroud is a guy who's shown from college to now that if you're in a big game, he's not frightened in the moment. So give me Houston at home. I like CJ over Herbert, and I even though the matchup in this case for the coaching side, Harbaugh is a very good coach, but I think I like Houston that one.
Yeah, I took the Chargers because of Harbaugh, and the fact that they got J.K. Dobbins back. But boy, oh boy, if Justin Herbert doesn't win this game, I just want to know what the excuses are going to be for him then. Like, you can only put stats up for so long before you got to start winning. We saw this, and I hate to use basketball as an example, but we saw this with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was the best player in the league pretty much when he started his career, but he never won. And people started asking questions like, okay, he's great, but is he ever going to actually win in the playoffs? He eventually did. So Herbert's got to win some big games. And I said this earlier in the season. It's like, when are we finally going to see this guy win a big game? Because he seems to always lose the big games. He eventually did. I think late in the season, they won 2 pretty big games. But this is it. He's 0-1 in the playoffs, blowing a huge lead. And you're coming in, taking on a Houston team that's lacking in confidence, has a lot of injuries, has problems on the offensive line against one of the best defenses in the league. There's no more excuses for Justin Herbert. He's got to get it done. But we'll see. Mm-hmm. We shall see. It's on the road, so we'll see. Yep. It's a big test for Mr. Herbert for sure.
Yep.
All right.
I mean, on the side note, with the fires going on in Los Angeles, we don't know what impact it's going to have to the Los Angeles teams across any sport.
Yes. So. Yes, we will mention the LA Fires when we get to the Rams game, which had to get moved to Arizona because these wildfires are just devastating. I just read something on JJ Redick losing his home and all of his property and possessions, and it's just devastating right now down there. So all the best wishes to the people of California and LA. It's just it's devastating right now. But we'll get to that game. We'll talk about the Rams and how that's going to affect them going into Arizona because they can't play in their home. So, but before that, let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's right, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I hate to say it, Beyond, but really limped into the playoffs, losing 5 straight. Problems with Russell Wilson, problems with their number 1 receiver, George Pickens, who is throwing a fit on the field, dropping passes, looking like he's quitting on the field. Mike Tomlin allowing this deviant behavior again. Rumors coming out that he might be traded if he doesn't win in the playoffs. There is a lot of drama going on in Pittsburgh right now. We're going back to the Antonio Brown days over here. They got to go to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. When these two teams meet, it's going to be a war every single time they play. It's typically close, although Baltimore did beat them by double digits in their last meeting. Beyond, what's going on with your boys, and how are they going to win this game with the way they're coming in? I mean, Lamar's not the best playoff quarterback. He's 2-4. Gets a little nervous in the playoffs, but they got Derrick Henry over there, and that's really going to help. Zay Flowers is going to miss this game, so Lamar's going to be tested. What do you think, Beyond? This is it's an interesting game.
It is an interesting game. I'll say the good part first. I think this is where people might be surprised. Yes, I have a Steelers hat, so I know everyone's saying, "Oh, you're going to pick the Steelers." I am going to pick the Steelers, actually. And the reason why is, one, there's sometimes you just do. I say 5 straight is it. Sometimes you just do. Everything just works out for you that day. 2, they're overwhelming underdog in this game, which if you watch Steeler history, especially the Tomlin era, that means you be very careful what you wish for. Steelers don't play good as a favorite. As underdog, that could be it's like a wounded animal. Be wary about that. 3, they have the better defense. And if that's the case, that defense can actually win you games. It has been shown to do so before. I got the best defensive player in the game. And sometimes everyone talks about stars on offense. Well, I got one hell of a star on defense in this case here. And I got a pretty good one in the secondary who picked off Mr. Jackson last time they played in this case. So I think those dudes have always played well in big games. I have no doubt that the defense will come there. And I think that the Flowers injury, that's a big loss for Baltimore. They're gonna force Lamar to throw, and we're gonna find out. That's what it comes down to. Henry's gonna get his carries, but it's gonna be like, once we don't give him a big run, and he gets a nickel and dime 2-3 here and there. If you get some third and longs on Lamar, I think we'll be all right in that sense. Now, the offense now. I must admit, the one thing I felt sure about until last week was a late game, 2-minute kind of drill. Historically, Russell Wilson is extremely good in those scenarios.
Yeah.
What I saw last week concerned me a little bit because he made some boneheaded decisions late in that game where I'm like, dude, why are you running the ball, man? I mean, I said there, and then of course in this case here, I think Aikman just like, dude, there's only so much time left. Throw the ball away. Getting 3 yards don't mean squat, man. You take a few more licks, you're 36. You want to go home and see Sierra? Come on now. Everybody want to go home and see Sierra if you're married. You're like, come on, what are we doing here? So like,
I understand that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a business decision by itself. I mean, never mind the rest of the stuff. And I'm sitting there shaking my head like, what are we doing? Then you had some other boneheaded plays in that 2-minute drill where it's like, and it's the second time in the last few weeks where I've seen him have these moments where he had one a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember who we were playing. And I'm sitting there going, watching the timeout situation. It was like almost like Thanksgiving Day with Detroit in this case, where I'm sitting where Chicago forgot they had a timeout. It's a similar situation. It's like, what is Pittsburgh doing? Call the timeout. I can't remember who they're playing, but I am concerned about that. The Pickens situation, my dad's a Steelers fan too. The whole family's a Steelers family. And I told him before he got hurt, I said, we need to draft a receiver. Okay. This dude is out here with imposter syndrome. He thinks he's a number one receiver. He ain't number one receiver, folks.
He was awful in that Cincinnati game. Just awful.
He is not a number one receiver. You can't count and rely on him. I think in some ways Tomlin, doesn't get enough credit for dealing with these type of personalities because talked to my father about this the other day. I guess talked about Pickens, and it's like buyer beware. If anyone wants to pick up Pickens and as a free agent, it's the Steelers. You can say what you want. Antonio Brown was most sane playing for them, and then all hell broke loose when he went everywhere else. So be wary of the Pickens. What he can do a spectacular catch here and there. What the Steelers need to do, and they have to be methodical about it, because everyone jumps on Russell, and Russell has his moments, but when it's all said and done, I heard Damian Woody say this a couple of weeks ago, and I've said this myself. I said finally someone actually eloquently said it on TV. He goes, "Look, man, if I was on Monday morning, we're prepping for the Steelers, that coming weekend, man. Ain't no one as a defense I'm afraid of. There's no playmakers on offense. Like the idea in this case here." I just call him the running back in this case. He frustrates me so much at this point here, just getting 2 yards every second. I'm like, dude, and now he's fumbling. Now he's fumbling the ball now too. At least he used to be shorthanded. Warren, he got a little pop to him, but about every 10 possessions, he's gonna fumble the ball because he's trying to fight for like extra yards. He's getting stripped at the goal line. The receivers, I love Austin, but Austin's a slot receiver for the most part, and he's solid. There's nothing wrong with him. The problem is we don't have any top dogs. And Freiermuth, who I like as a tight end, he too is making some boneheaded decisions lately. So it's not just a Russell thing; it's across the board. They're going to get back to basics and just and throw on first down, people, to make life easier for yourself. So that's my thing. I hope if they don't throw on first down, hey, it's a wrap. I don't care.
Yeah, the thing that worries me about the Steelers, you mentioned their defense. They've struggled against the run this year, and if Derrick Henry gets off early, that's a big problem, because then Lamar can use the play action and he can roll out. And when Lamar rolls out, he's the most dangerous quarterback in the NFL. And so they're going to have to contain him, and TJ is going to have to get on him early to make him a little nervous. Once he gets nervous, all bets are off. Anyone can win the game at that point.
True. I will say this though: this is the first time in a while. You want to call it my big three in this case here, however you want to call it, but Watt, Watt, Highsmith, and in this case as well as my mind just slipped my mind. It's been a tiring day in this case here. The man just won player of the citizen of the year. Oh my gosh, I just went blank.
Lord.
Hayward.
Hayward. There you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's been a long day, folks. Yeah, Hayward. So
Yeah.
those three, those guys haven't played much with each other this year. Highsmith got injured early in the season. He came back a few games ago. Watt's been in and out the last few games, and Hayward's been the one constant. So I think I feel better with them there now, and we'll see how it plays out. I think they'll scheme okay against Henry. So we'll see.
Yeah, that it's going to be a war. We know this because that's the way they play. So look, we look forward to that.
I kind of glad this game's on the road, though.
Yeah. I mean, Pittsburgh beat them at home, like 18-10. Their defense took over that game, and then Baltimore beat them in the second meeting. And so we'll
watch that with some buddies at Real Sports Bar, man.
Yeah,
that was a great day.
Yeah,
all the Steelers fans going crazy.
I do think that Wilson is going to have to outplay Lamar for them to win this game. I actually think because the Ravens secondary is not good, and he's going to have to get the ball deep to Pickens, and Pickens is going to have to show up if they're going to win this game. So we'll see.
Funny enough, I think the key guy is Austin in this game, but we'll see because I think they're not going to give him anything deep, and he's at the pick them apart underneath.
Yeah. All right, let's get to Sunday. The Denver Broncos, who got a bye, and when I say a bye, they got a Kansas City team that basically had no incentive to win that game, breasted the whole world, and they won 38-0.
But Mouth, I thought it was only the NBA in this case where guys were on load management. Huh? What happened?
Boy.
Where's all the fire and brimstone? I thought it was just the NBA that happens. Oh no, it doesn't. Oh really? Oh okay.
They rested the whole damn team.
Oh, really? I remember when the Colts got hell about that when they were going for the undefeated season too. You remember? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they ended up losing to Pittsburgh that year, if I remember correctly.
Yep, I think so.
And they didn't look like a team that had played in a month. So we'll see how that works out for Kansas City. They could play the Chargers, they could play the Broncos. Like it's not going to be an easy matchup for KC in the second round, I don't think. Especially if it's one of their division opponents. And so we'll see how that works out. It'll be 24 days between games for Patrick Mahomes and his boys. So we'll see. But Denver gets in. They knock out Cincinnati, much to the chagrin of many people, including our boy Nick Wright, who didn't give a damn. He's like, I don't care if Cincinnati's in or not. They're going to beat them anyway. So Miami, of course, was eliminated, and they have their own issues as Tyreek Hill has pulled in Antonio Brown himself and looking to get out of there. So they go to Buffalo to take on the Bills, who, in my opinion, should have the MVP of the league in the playoffs on their team. Josh Allen, who I have always been critical of, especially with the amount of turnovers he has. I think this has been his best season. Not stats-wise, but I think if you watch him play and with the control he's playing with, this is the best season he's had in his career. Without the weapons, without any consistent weapons, and his ability to control games from start to finish, this has been his best season. I think he's done the most with the least this year, and therefore he should win. But we'll see. It could be Lamar because the stats are overwhelming, but we'll see. I think Derrick Henry rushed for 1,900 yards this year. I think they'll split votes, and therefore Allen will win the award. But we'll see. I think that Buffalo is an amazing story, but it just feels like their defense is struggling. And they're going to really need Allen to carry them past a rookie. Now, thank you to Nick Wright again for this. Rookie quarterbacks on the road do not do well in the playoffs. So as much as I'd like to pick Denver because of their defense, I'm going to take the Bills. But they will not win by a lot. The line's 9.5. I think this will be a close game. What do you think, Bjorn?
I agree. I think it's a close one. I'm itching to take Denver. I'm just so itching because that defense is formidable. I'm not as sold as Josh Allen in the postseason as maybe others are. I mean, everyone goes back to the great game, the 13-second game, but he's had some real stinkers in the playoffs. I know Lamar catches a lot of hell, but I mean, he had that Houston game with 5 turnovers when he first came in. I think he was his second year or something like that. He's had, the Cincinnati game. He wasn't looking like anything fantastic in the snow. I mean, that was a home game too. I mean, I watched Denver play last few weeks, and even the Cincinnati game, like Bo Nix ain't no joke, man. Like he, like I can see a scenario where it's like old school Parcells where they just ball control that sucker all day long, and like you're just sitting there watching Josh Allen sit on the bench all day. Like I can see Sean Payton pulling a move like that, and I'll go. I'm with you. I'll go with Buffalo in a squeaker, man. But like, it would not surprise me if we come back on Monday and we're like, oh man, wow.
If Denver had a running back, I would really consider it. But their run game's no good, and so they're gonna have to rely on Nix to beat the Bills secondary, which is weak. But I just don't see Nix outgunning Allen in this game.
But I think what Peyton might do is a lot of short passes in this case to use that as a
Yeah.
running game instead of a substitution. And I think that might be sufficient to keep Buffalo off the field just long enough, man. I don't know. Like, this is going to be a fascinating game on strategy because, I mean, I don't, quite honestly, I don't trust Buffalo's coach either, man.
No, I do not either. Some late games, if that guy's in a late game close, you're in trouble. So,
yeah.
We'll see. I think it's going to be a close game. I really do. That Denver defense is dangerous. The Bills receivers are not anything to write home about. Cook is going to have a good game for them as well. So it's going to be tight, I think, this one. They won't win by a lot, although Denver's taking their beatings on the road this year. Baltimore hammered them, and they had some tough games on the road.
And they got a cold weather team, so they ain't in fear no cold weather. So that ain't nothing to do. Yeah.
No. So we'll see, but we're both slightly taking the Bills there. Let's get to the next game. Oh, this game here. My friend Gil will enjoy us talking about this one, as his Green Bay Packers are going to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Our boy there, Jalen Hurts, cleared concussion protocol. He will play on Sunday along with Saquon Barkley. Beyond, I said this last week, and I'm going to repeat it, but not as long as I did. I went on a rant on Nick Sirianni. I thought that they should have let Saquon try to break the record. All the guys that usually do the show with me disagreed. I picked the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl, but there's something inside of me that says I really don't like them not going for that record and holding it back, and it might kill the momentum that they had going into the playoffs. I think going in there with that record all hyped up would have really made a difference. I mean, we saw this with Tampa Bay, who we'll get to. They won the game, and then they had Mike Evans get his 1,000 yards, and everyone on the team was pumped up and fired up, and I really like that. Whereas the Eagles decided to rest everyone. We'll see if it hurts them, but man, Saquon's probably never going to get that chance again. Now they're playing the Packers. The Packers have been just a team that I can't understand. They're very inconsistent. They start slow. They have these great comebacks and lose at the end. Jordan Love is just a terrible first half quarterback and a great second half quarterback. Jacobs has been great all year long. They have very inconsistent receivers that show up sometimes and sometimes don't. They lost Christian Watson for the season, so their deep threat is gone. Their defense has been up and down as well, but the Eagles' defense has just been awesome all year. And I think if their defense plays that well, they can make the Super Bowl and they will win this game. Earlier in the year, they met in week 1 in Brazil. Philadelphia won 34-29. I don't think it will be that kind of game this time around. But I've got the Eagles because they have the more consistent team and defense. But this is going to be another great game, Beyond. Who do you like in this one? What do you think of these two teams?
Well, this is almost like the flip side, someone looking themselves in the mirror and seeing the opposite side of them, right? Because of Philadelphia, I would say weak link's a bit strong. But the person in this case that's the most acceptable in this case right now is obviously, is Hurts, especially with the soft pumpkin at the moment. Like, I don't know, what Hurts we're going to see. So that's the first thing. And I never seen that's the most unhappiest team I've ever seen that win that many games in my life.
Man, I don't understand.
Like, it's like
AJ Brown's losing his mind. Like, I don't know what's wrong with that team.
I mean, you got folks whispering that if the coach don't get it done, he's getting fired. Like, I mean, like, it's a weird vibe going on there in the city of brotherly love. So that's one thing. And then on the other side, you guys mentioned it in this case here. I don't know, man. If there's one team that I said that I would, if I was one of the top seeds, I did not want to play, it's Green Bay. Because Jordan Love, one of them guys, he's got a bit of that swashbuckler thing, like Brett Favre, where you don't know what might happen that day. He could throw 5 picks, but he might throw 5 touchdowns too. Like, I don't know what to expect. and he's a guy that plays fast and loose. He doesn't seem to worry about things like this. And guys like that make me nervous on one game elimination. I don't know.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So usually one team gets beat. That's the road team. And I've already picked the Steelers as my road upset. And it's hard for me to pick two, especially you know what? No, I'm just. Oh my gosh, man! I just watched that Dallas game last year, but I feel like there is elements of the same type of recipe that's played out in front of me, right in front of me.
It's true. It's true.
Oh my gosh. Oh, what the hell, man? You only live once, man. As in the James Bond, you live twice. And the Bond movie says, I'm going to go with it, man. I'm going to take the pack. Take the pack.
They can do it. I mean, if they jump on Philadelphia early and Philly gets nervous, absolutely they can win this game. They did it to Dallas last year. They jumped all over them, and Dallas couldn't recover.
And one thing I like about LaFleur in this case here, unlike most young coaches, I like the fact like he plays aggressive. Like he ain't trying to kind of hold back. Like he's attacking.
Yeah.
So I like that. Like he's gonna be going out there. They're gonna be looking for seam routes. You name it. They're going after them. I think so. That's gonna be a fun game though. I can't wait to see that one.
Oh man, all these games are gonna be really fun. I outside of Kansas City, who always finds ways to win but plays pretty close games, all these games are going to be great. I don't think there'll be too many blowouts in any of these games. Speaking of fun, this to me is going to be the most fun game of the year, of the wild card round. The Washington Commanders, who I've loved this team all year. Jaden Daniels has been great. He made the playoffs with Washington. They have McLaurin, they've got Robinson. I like these guys a lot because they're on my fantasy team, but I thought they were fun to watch.
They are fun to watch.
38-33 games, 34-31 games, just all over the place. And they get to go to Tampa Bay, who has played multiple games where they've scored 40 points all year long because they've had a bad defense. Expect a very high-scoring, fun game here, as my boy Baker Mayfield, who might be one of my favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. I love Baker Mayfield. I love Baker. I mean, I love underdog stories, and this guy he's a walk-on in college. He gets kicked out of Cleveland, who boy oh boy, are they regretting that right now. Cleveland
I thought he got a raw deal in Cleveland, man. I thought I was a little bit with Nick Wright on that one, like I don't know. I mean, I know you guys make it say, oh, he's the quarterback. It's like, well, now we see it's a little bit more than the quarterback.
They said that they needed an adult in the room, and I'm looking at Tampa Bay and how Baker Mayfield's leading that team. I think he's an adult. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, he's grown into it, yeah.
So they met earlier in the year as well. I think this is also week 1, 38-20 win for Tampa Bay. Washington wasn't fully, integrated yet. Washington's defense and Tampa Bay's defense has struggled all season long. So this is a battle between the quarterbacks and the running backs. Now, Bucky Irving has been unbelievable since he's taken over the starting job in Tampa Bay. Evans is healthy, and they've got a new man. His name escapes me now. He took over for Chris Godwin, and Baker's had some nice chemistry.
Yeah. I know who you're talking about. I can't remember his name. I saw him just last week. Yeah,
his name escapes me, but people who watch the show will know who I'm talking about. They had a scary game last week, Tampa Bay against New Orleans. New Orleans has been a thorn in their side for many years, so it got a little scary. But this will be high scoring. Boy, do I want to take the upset in this game. But I just think that, again, rookie quarterback on the road, playing Baker, who's got experience, who beat Philadelphia last year, who went to Detroit and won this year. I got to think that Tampa Bay is going to win this game. It'll be close. It'll be a field goal. But it wouldn't shock me if Washington pulls this out. I just think that Tampa, with the experience, is going to win this game at home. But boy, it's going to be a high-scoring game and a lot of fun to watch. Beyond, both these, I love both these teams, so it's a tough choice because I love both these.
Yeah,
teams.
I'm going to stick with just the home team, but I think there's a lot of elements of Jaden Daniels that are very similar to what I just described with Jordan Love. He's a cool customer. I mean, I watched that Eagles game a couple of weeks ago. And he's like, he's got like a minute and a half left to get down the field. He's out there joking with the front line of the down lineman of the Eagles. With 30 seconds left to go in the game, it's like I mentioned, my dad's like, he saw the same thing. It's like, this dude's got like cold as ice in his veins. Like, oh my gosh! Never mind the Chicago game. Like, But I think I can stick with the Bucks. I can't have another road win. It's like, 2's already getting greedy, but there's a lot of road. If you're a betting man, I know you like to put a little something on sometimes.
Yep.
There's some tasty underdogs that make you think twice.
Well, for those who like betting, I will be taking the over in this game, 100%. And I will be taking the big spreads. I'm almost positive I'll be taking Denver to cover their spread. I like the Chargers, although they're a road favorite. I don't like taking road favorites, so we'll see about that. Pittsburgh covering that 9 looks really good too.
I agree.
So there are some opportunities out there. I think Green Bay will cover the 5 as well. So and we've seen this in the wild card round. There are upsets and people outright winning on big spreads. We've seen that before, so it wouldn't shock me. But always a lot of fun betting in the playoffs, that's for sure. So we'll see. These are some tough games, but these spreads are a little high for me. I mean, Philly's
I'm
a
surprised
5.
they're that high. Some of them I'm surprised.
5's a lot. I mean, if Philly's going to win this game, it's probably going to be 3. I don't think it's going to be higher than 5, but we'll see.
Yeah, considering that that the Hurts is coming off your concussion protocol, it's like 5. Like, really? I mean, I don't think that Green Bay and Philadelphia are that far apart. I think the other thing is playing into some of these spreads. I think you mentioned it earlier, because there's rookie quarterbacks involved. I think they're I think that Vegas is like putting a point or two for that reason as well too. I think in some of these scenarios.
Yeah. So I like Tampa, but I'll just enjoy watching these two guys go at it, and I won't be disappointed either way who wins. The winner of that game, I believe, unless there's a major upset, will go to Detroit, and that, no matter who wins, is going to be very, very fun to watch that's because
that's going to be
Detroit, like they like to outscore teams because of their defensive issues, and Tampa Bay's won there, and Washington's going to cause problems for them too, and so this is.
The Sonic and Knuckles combo should be the Sonic and Knuckles combo should be back by then, man. So I hear rumors that
so we're gonna see. Like, this is one of those years where the 1 seeds don't feel like locks to get to the Super Bowl, and that includes Kansas City. And so there can be upsets here. So I don't think there's a giant gap between the 1 seed and even the bottom seeds this year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I could be wrong, but there's usually upsets. So. All right, now I wanted to mention this, and Dion already mentioned this before. Thoughts and prayers go out to all the people in LA. We've seen multiple cancellations. The Lakers had their game canceled. I believe they played Charlotte. The Kings also had their game canceled, although I think they did play today, but they were in Winnipeg. And so there's no games going on there right now. The NFL had to make a move because of rest reasons, and they couldn't move the actual day of the game because it's on Monday night, and so they had to move this to Arizona. That's unfortunate for the Rams, who are going to have a home game. So it's Minnesota at the Rams. Minnesota got absolutely just punked by the Lions last week. Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts again after getting blitzed by Brian Flores' defense. He didn't know what to do. So Detroit once again impressively won. They got the 1 seed. Minnesota drops to the 5 seed. 14-3 or 13-4 on the year, which is a shame. They got to go to the Rams, and the Rams have already beaten Minnesota this year. When this was in LA, when I did my last show, I had picked the Rams. Now it's going to be in Arizona, which is an open field, so that changes things. So the Rams. I'm not a fan of Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold, and so this is really tough for me. I love Kyren Williams. I think he's a great back. But they're probably going to try to throw the ball against Minnesota's secondary. The question is, can Minnesota's defense get to Stafford? If they do, expect some picks. If they don't, they're going to get murdered like they did on the last time they played, when the Rams took advantage of them picking up the blitz. And so this is a tough one. Oh boy, I picked the Rams the last time I did my show, so I'm not gonna change my mind now. I just think the Rams have more experience, and I don't trust Sam Darnold. And until he shows me he can do it in the playoffs, I'm going to go with the Rams, even though I'm not a Stafford fan. What do you think, John? This is a tough one.
I mean, I think you hit it on the head the last point you made, right? It's like sometimes, especially nowadays in football, like back in the day, you can say, okay, someone's got a defense you can rely on, someone's got a running game. Nowadays, it's pretty much like who's got the better quarterback? And when it's all said and done, it's like who do you trust more in this spot? Especially with the circumstances around it, right? These unusual circumstances. Do I trust in this case here the Super Bowl head coach, the boy genius himself, and Matt Stafford? Or in this case, do I trust Sam Darnold? You know, I used to see ghosts and
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 Kevin
his coach.
O'Connell.
And Kevin
Yeah.
O'Connell, in this case, that hasn't done anything in a playoff series. I know my buddy's probably, if he ever listens to this, you know, he's a Vikings fan, but he's always got impending doom on his head. So I haven't talked to him yet to see what his pulse is right now. And that, let me tell you something. I tell you, that game against Detroit on Sunday night, man, I saw Jet Sam Darnold peek out there, take a peek, and pop out
He
the
looks
hole there.
scared beyond. He looks scared.
Yeah, the ghost came back, my friend.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he was missing throws by like 5-10 feet. I mean, he was just scared out there, man.
Give me the Rams in this one. Even with the different locale, man. Give me the Rams, man.
Yeah, I was so disappointed watching that game. I was like, I said to myself, what was I thinking, trusting Sam Darnold in the big game? Because I ended up taking Minnesota. I took Minnesota in that game just because of the defense, and just Dan Campbell just sent the wolves on him, and it was over. It was over. And then Detroit just went crazy. Yeah.
Once Detroit smells blood in the water, they ain't holding back. You know, they ain't just run the ball for the rest of the day. They're letting to embarrass you. They tell you so.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I just think the other thing is like the Rams, they have the weapons too. So it's like if they don't get the ball to Addison and Jefferson, I just don't think Minnesota can win the game. And you already know Stafford, if he doesn't get the ball to his guys, yes, they can lose or they can have low scoring games like they've had recently. But they still have Kyron Williams, and I think he's the better back as well. So I just think the Rams have the better team, despite the record difference. So that's our preview so far of the wild card games. But you see, what we like to do before the playoffs begin is we like to make our Super Bowl picks early. And so, beyond, who do you like to make the Super Bowl, and who's winning it this year? This is about as tough as you can pick, unless you're a Chiefs fan. So, who do you think's getting there, and who's winning?
I'll do the AFC first, man. Honestly, I think this is the one thing. Until I see something different, I'm going to take the Nick Wright mindset. You know, the Arrowhead Invitational, and I'm taking Kansas City. Until someone do something number 15, I ain't picking against them. So I'm going to take the Chiefs in the AFC. On the NFC side, man, I tell you, man, I've never seen it so wild ever like this before. You know, and I mean, until the Seattle game, I just had the Rams. And the Rams were looking like, looking a little frisky. I think right now, I think I got to stick with Detroit. I mean, I know, I got to stick. I think Detroit is actually going to make it. I think, it is Detroit, so you never know. But I look at all the other teams; they seem the most solid of who's left back. Green Bay can get streaky, but that's a problem. They're streaky. You know, Philadelphia's got so many issues when it comes to their offense. In this case, at times, Tampa. I no disrespect your boy. I just can't see Tampa getting the Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield. I can't see it. You got rookie quarterbacks in this case with Washington, as well. And then you go into there, Sam Darnold. We already discussed that now, man. I was going through the teams in my head.
I mentioned this on my previous show. Tampa Bay is the only team in the league this year that beat Philadelphia and Detroit. And so, man, I'm telling you, if Tampa Bay can really cause problems to just about anybody.
Yeah, I'm not saying they won't be. I agree with you. I think they're the biggest threat to Detroit. They and I think them and Philly. Philly's right. I think. But like, don't get me wrong. I think Baker's going to play well, but I'm not sure Baker's good enough. And I'm not saying that in a disrespectful way. I'm just thinking,
right?
Like I don't know if they got enough. Like Baker himself is not a guy who's going to say, "Get on my bat, boys, let's do this" type of thing. I don't think he's not that type of quarterback. Most of those quarterbacks are on the other side of the draw in this case here. Yeah. So it's like you're gonna have to ask a lot for someone to go inside the Silver Dome and get that Ford Field or whatever the hell they call it nowadays.
I mean, but Bucky Irving has been like unbelievable for them as well to give them balance and allow them to make the play action passes. So we'll see. The problem with Tampa is they could lose to Washington because Washington made a trade for Marcus Lattimore, and Marcus Lattimore and he has given Mike Evans nightmares his whole career. And so if they're able to shut down Lattimore Evans in that game, then that could lead to trouble for Tampa Bay because then
especially no Godwin.
No Godwin, and then you're relying on the rookie there to make all the plays. And Irving's also a rookie, so you have two rookies trying to win the game at that point. So they could lose in the first round. So
it could get dicey.
Yeah. So I made my picks earlier. I did pick the Ravens. I'm regretting it now, but I just think that here's the thing. I picked the Ravens for two reasons. One, I think that their defense improved enough at the end of the season for me to like them more. If this was earlier in the season, there's no way I would have picked them because they had one of the worst defenses in the league in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
They can stop the run. They've been stopping the run all year, so that's good. My problem with the Ravens, believe it or not, is coaching.
I'm so glad you said this. Oh, please, preach.
John Harbaugh, he gets a pass far too often for making really silly mistakes in game, mid game, end of game. Like the Ravens have played this year, and I think they lost 5 games. Okay, they won 12. In those 12 wins, Derrick Henry rushed for 18 or more times in the game. They won all 12. In the 5 losses, he ran for under 18 carries, and they lost all 5. It's a very, very simple formula, you would think. They did the same thing last year in Kansas City. They had Lamar throw the ball 41 times against Kansas City's defense, which was excellent.
It's like they're trying to prove something that doesn't need to be proved. I think,
dude.
Did we talk about this offline? Because I made the joke about saying, I said it's amazing how Tomlin's always on the hot seat every year, but yet no one ever says a thing about Harbaugh, and he's got he's at the MVP quarterback. I think Tomlin's sitting there going, I wish I had one of those on my shelf.
I mean, Tomlin's winning divisions with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, for God's sake.
I just got in this case here, any guy you can pick in this case is running back pretty much. And you're getting Hall of Fame running backs in this case come and line up to play for you. Like, I know, man. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, he's had years in this case where the receiving core has been great for Lamar, but they're still able to pick up a guy off the street like Odell Beckham, even though it's like, but the Steelers don't get nothing like that. We go with what we got.
Yeah.
We'll budge.
Like, to me, John Harbaugh is not talked about enough as a coach that needs to be checked, because if he doesn't run the football with that monster that is Derrick Henry and they lose, it's on him. You have to run the football if this team's going to win. It sets up the play action pass. It takes the pressure off Lamar, and it sets up their entire game on both ends. But if you're trying to throw the ball early, that's when you're going to get into trouble.
Well, so here's the thing. To your point, here's the other thing. I'm not sure if it's Lamar or the offensive coordinator. I don't know what goes on here, but like all of a sudden they forget they have a 4-3 running quarterback that can run 4-3, and all of a sudden now all of a sudden they decide, you know what, Lamar, we're gonna turn you into circa 1983 is Dan Marino. Like, what the heck? Like, I don't know what's going on. If it's him, if it's the offensive coordinators, if it's Harbaugh, like that needs to be like jump. Listen, man. All hands on deck. You gotta take the Mahomes mindset, man. I'll throw it sideways. I'll dive for it. I'll run on one leg. It don't matter. I'm just gonna get the W however I can get it.
Yeah, I mean, watching that game last year when they played Kansas City was so frustrating. They kept him in the pocket. He never rolled out. He never moved. And yes, they made some mistakes at the end, but it's like they had every opportunity to win that game, and it was awful play calling. And it's like, you can't allow a 1,900-yard rusher, one of the best running backs ever, to sit on the bench. You have to run the football. And so we'll see. But I think if they run the football against Kansas City and they get up early, they have a chance to beat them. I think they're going to have to play Buffalo first, I believe. And that's going to be its own challenge, because even though they did kill Buffalo early in the season, they got to go to Buffalo, and that will be tough. But I think that I've seen road teams go through the playoffs, and when we saw Kansas City do it last year. So I think it's possible, but they have to run the football. Yeah, the
as a
Steelers have
six
done it.
seed.
Green Bay did it. The Giants did it twice. So
Mhm.
a lot of times when you play early and you're on the road, you gain some momentum and you catch
Yeah.
the home teams off guard. And Kansas City's going to go into the playoffs off 24 days. And so we'll see how it works out. But I feel for Lamar. He's been very average in the playoffs, but I don't think it's been his fault. I think that it's
Yeah.
been really bad coaching and very bad offensive coordinating for him. But with Derrick Henry
Yeah.
back there, I think they have a real chance with him back there to win. They've never had a running back like him. And even with Zay Flowers out, they still got Mark Andrews and Lively. They can make some plays in there,
Yeah.
even if it's short passes. So
Yeah.
I picked
I know.
Baltimore. Yeah.
No, I
Go
just want
ahead.
to say no. To your point about Lamar, like I'm kind of, if he wasn't playing for the Steelers, he wasn't playing for Baltimore. I probably would be more outwardly about this, but I just wanted to play well. That's like whatever the case may
Yeah.
be. Like even if they lose, it's like I don't want to hear Monday morning is like like I don't want to hear
Nick
that.
Wright's gonna kill him. Nick Wright's gonna kill him if they
Yeah, he's gonna
lose.
kill him. I know. So yeah, but if he wins, Bruce Hart's looking for him.
Hmm. You got it. You got it.
The purple mink's coming out on Monday if they win.
Classic. Yeah. So I'm gonna pick them against my better judgment, hoping that John Harbaugh has learned his lesson. And I picked the Eagles. And I picked the Eagles despite the injury. Now that I know that Hurts is back, Hurts has kind of been inconsistent, but man, Saquon's having a great year. They still have the weapons out there. But I picked the Eagles because of their defense. Their defense has blown me away this year. They had very impressive road wins against really good teams where they were able to stop teams defensively. So I think the Eagles can beat Detroit. They can beat everyone else in that conference if their defense plays as well as it has. Obviously, they
Mm.
have a big question at coach because Nick Sirianni does some dumb things going for it on fourth down and just trying to let teams back in the game with stupid calls. Boy, if they play Detroit, it's going to be a battle of who goes for it more. It's just Detroit and Philadelphia. Just be pure fourth quarters. From our own 20, we're not going to punt. We're going to go for it. It's going to be one of those games. So if they play each other, look out, guys. So I
That
picked
call
Philly,
last
and then
year.
it was just, come on, man. I'm a 49ers fan, and when he did that, I'm like, we're coming back to win now because of that stupid call.
Oh,
And we
man,
did.
that call, man.
And we did.
That call.
So, but that gambling might cost them, but we'll see. It's going to be
I have a
wild.
buddy that's a Lions fan, man. I had to check to see if he's okay after that game.
Oh man, heart attack. Oh my God. So big year for both Sirianni and Campbell and their
Mhm.
gambling ways. But I did pick Baltimore to win the Super Bowl, although I think the Eagles are probably the better team. But we'll see. Kansas City. They look great to end the season, especially when healthy. I can't argue with your pick at all. Their defense is really good, and they have the experience, and they can win 3 in a row. I can't argue that. The way they play games, at some point, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned. And
Yes, but
we'll
there's
see.
another
We'll
way I
see.
can look at it too. Like and we see this more in like other sports like basketball more so, where there's also a flip the switch theory as well too.
Yes.
And
Yes.
let me tell
Absolutely.
you something. This team on Christmas Day, we saw the switch get flipped. Okay, it wasn't pretty. I was like, oh damn, it was done by the first quarter.
Man. Yeah. I mean, the Arrowhead Invitational, man. That's it. I
Yes.
mean, I just think that the Denver, the Chargers, and the Ravens, and even Buffalo, all those teams pose problems for Kansas City. Buffalo was the only team that beat them this year, as I picked Buffalo in that game, but I still was surprised that Buffalo was able to handle them the way they did. Denver should have beaten them in Kansas City. It was a block kick. The Chargers had an opportunity to beat them as well. Now, obviously, they lost the games, but I think all those teams are not far away from the Chiefs. And so, if it's close and they get a little too froggy, it can go another way. Harrison Butker's missing kicks and wasn't healthy to end the season. That could be a factor. Although Justin Tucker wasn't any good either. So we'll see. It's something. I said this last year, and they won the Super Bowl. So who am I to say? But
I
there's
know,
just
man.
something
They
about
got 50. They got 15-87, and they got that man on defense, and they seem to always
that's
make
it, man.
plays. I'm just
And they
saying.
they added they got Hollywood Brown and they added DeAndre Hopkins. Like it's a team that looks like they're going to win again. It really does. I'm choosing to go against them, but it wouldn't shock me at all if they won again. They're peaking at the right time, as Nick Wright likes to say. They've practiced enough. It's time for them to play now in the real games. So Nick Wright is insufferable, but I love him. I gotta admit. I'm gonna give it to Nick Wright. I never watched First Things First, and then I started watching it, and there's great chemistry between the three guys. Wilds is great, and Broussard, but it's Nick Wright that really got me to watch that show.
I think I put you kind of like I kept on my Nick Wright, the takes for Nick Wright, and I think I kind of got you interested in watching the show. It's the best sports show on TV, like by far.
Absolutely, and it's the only show I watch now. I used to watch First Take and Undisputed. I don't watch them anymore unless I do like to see Sharp every once in a while on First Take, but like that show is the only real sports show that feels like a real sports show.
Yeah, if it's the right topic and stuff, I still watch The Herd a little bit. So I still watch The Herd a little bit.
Cowherd's fine. Cowherd's fine. He's kind of he's kind of a little too critical sometimes of players that I think he shouldn't be critical of, like Baker Mayfield, for example. Brock Purdy's another example, although Brock had a rough season. He's going to be polarizing for the rest of his career. So,
man, Mr. Irrelevant, man, don't start right on
him. Boy, would I have loved to have seen these guys when Tom Brady came out as a 6th round pick. What they would have been saying about him when his defense was carrying him, and then he turned into what he became. But Nick Wright's the reason. Like he got me to watch his show every day, and it's like even when I disagree with him, he comes up with really good reasons why he's right.
Yeah, I think the chemistry amongst the three of them, even when they bring in the special guests, but I think the thing that separates them is the chemistry is one thing, and they have interesting debates, but it's also they have these segments that I think are very creative. Everybody has their own segments, right? Be it Mahomes Mountain, or in this case, who's entering Club Superstar, which is one of my favorites of all.
Yeah, that was so good. So we have Bruce Ballad, we've got the Bud List. I mean, it's just great.
The Bud List, exactly. Yeah.
And then Wild has his his Wild and Wonderful, and just
exactly.
It's really good
those little things. Yeah, the committee.
The committee. Yes. The committee, which is Nick Wright, of course. Yeah, like even there are times when Nick Wright does his mountain and he picks Mahomes, even though he has Buffalo beat them. Buffalo beat them, and he still kept them on top. I'm like, that's a fan, but he does it in a way where it's like, okay, I can see why he's keeping him up there, but he really shouldn't be up there. And then Coach Mangini calls him out, and it's
as he always says, man, take integrity, my friend. Take integrity.
That's it. But it's a lot of fun to watch that show, and you kind of learn a lot when you're doing a show like this, and you watch them, and it's like, hey, that's a show I'd like to pattern myself off of. And then you see other shows, and it's totally different. Like Inside the NBA is maybe the opposite.
They go on more of like a stream of consciousness type of thing, where it's like, okay, we start with this, and we don't know where it might go.
Yeah, so, they're just off the cuff, right? So
So it's very hard to reproduce that.
So it's interesting. I've always found sports debate TV to be quite interesting, especially the contrast of each show. So it's fun. But that's our show. I'd like to thank Beyond a lot for coming on here. This was a lot of fun to do. Something outside of football, something outside of basketball is really good.
Yeah, so. Hey, man, if you want to break down tennis with the Australian Open? Hey, I'm here too, man.
I was just going to mention that with the Australian Open coming up, and some interesting comments coming out of the Djokovic camp and the drugs that are going on with the number one players in the world. There is some interesting stuff to talk about going into this Australian Open.
There is. I mean, right now it looks like pretty much, I'm not sure. Osaka might be not long for this career pretty soon. Like there's a lot of stuff going on. So
there's some great stories. So absolutely, we can do that. I think the Australian Open starts quite soon, actually.
It starts in like a week's time or something like that, I think.
So yeah, I'd love to talk about that tournament and what's going on going into the tournament. Will Djokovic get his 26th title? Is he done winning titles after not winning a major last year? right? Is he done
Yeah,
winning majors? You know, it's just a good
yeah.
question.
I got thought of that. Yeah, but I'll leave that if we do the show. But
Yeah, we'll talk about the retirement of Rafael Nadal.
yeah,
There's a lot of stuff to talk about.
it is.
Tennis players going to pickleball. You know, it's like
Yeah,
it's. I mean,
yeah. And
our girl Jean Bouchard retiring, going to pickleball.
yeah, yeah. And Coco kind of having a resurgence late in the season, man. Like she knocked
Yeah,
off the one and two players, and right now, Swiatek in this case is like, I don't know what's going on in her head, man. She's like losing it. So that's yeah, on both sides, it's going to be very interesting
well,
this year. Definitely,
I mean,
it could be.
how did
Mhm.
she respond from her 1 month suspension? I mean, you know, is that going to get into her head?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna be fascinating to see how this all plays out. Yeah,
yeah.
it's gonna be
Pretty
a good year in
interesting
tennis.
start to the tennis season. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that.
man. It is, man. It's interesting times, man. There's all sorts
No,
of stuff. We will. Let's not do that. But yeah, there's like
yeah,
indoor
let's not
golf. There's
do
a
that.
lot of stuff
You
going
know,
on, man.
there's a lot to go on. This is great. We can talk about a lot of things. As I said, I've wanted to have Beyond to talk about other sports for a while now, as we have quite a range of knowledge and a lot of years on us to go back and talk about these things. So
Hmm.
when the live sports dies, that's what we talk about. So certainly with
Yeah.
football being over and basketball, you know, not being much in Toronto right now, there's going to be plenty of time to talk about lots of stuff. I'd love to know where Bianca Andreescu is. I'd love to know what's going on with her knee and her back, and what's happened to her the last 2 years. So there's a lot to talk about. So
Mm.
I will have Beyond back for that. I think that's a great idea. We'll talk about the Australian Open, what's coming up in tennis this year, and much more on the Reese Report. But for now, I'm the mouth of the North, Andrew Reese, and that is Beyond the Locker Room. We will see you next time on the Reese Report. And like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll be sharing this all over the place. Tune in, guys, and listen because you're going to love this show. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now. All right, Beyond. That was great.